Voter turnout has been lower this year than back in 2016. The South African Local Government Association was concerned this may actually happen. It said the elections should not have been held on a Monday, as many would turn it into a long weekend. Let's get some reaction now from SALGA's Lance Joel. Lance, good morning to you. We had this conversation on Monday, and I hate to say this, but you almost called this. You actually warned and say that you'd hope that people would come out to vote and not make a repetition of the 2016 government elections, where again we saw that low voter turnout. It seems we're seeing it again with the 2021 elections.
Well, good morning to Melo as well as to the viewers. Indeed, we are quite disappointed that, as we had anticipated, that the voter turnout would be quite low. We had hoped certainly that we would be able, through our call, to encourage South Africans to come out to the polls and indeed make their mark. But indeed, we are now post the fact, and we are looking forward to seeing ultimately the results being declared so that we can get on with the business of delivering services.
Yeah, but the lessons here that can be learned from, the IEC political party, South Africans themselves who have to take responsibility for this voter turnout, what do you think can be for this year? What's important to note so that in the next local government elections, hopefully again, we will not see a repetition of what we're seeing this time around?
Well, I think the starting point, Tumelo, is that we should perhaps steer away from wanting to have conversations about government itself only when it comes to the elections. The conversation about government and government holistically delivering services should be an ongoing conversation, so that communities firstly are kept abreast of developments as and when they occur. And similarly, communities are given feedback on the implementation of the manifestos of political parties, so that indeed we institutionalize government within our communities, and it does not become a conversation that is only linked to the elections itself. And we go through this unfortunate cycle every 2.5 years. Again, it's going to happen 2.5 years from now when we go to the national and provincial elections. We will only wake up a few months before the national provincial elections and want to start talking about the delivery of services. And indeed, it should be an ongoing conversation with communities.
Right, and I couldn't agree more with you on that aspect, Lance, but also because, as you mentioned, post-elections now, we have to think forward. What lies ahead for local government? What lies ahead for municipalities? Because if anything, those who did turn out to vote are sending quite a strong message here to various municipalities around the country. What do you think they should be heeding in terms of, obviously the voters raising their voice during these elections?
Well, Tumelo, if you look at the picture now, the voters have spoken, and the voters have said. If you look at the IEC results now, it has said that in 35 municipalities there's no outright winner, and it would require political parties to work together. Yeah, and so I'm sure you would see that over the next few days there's going to be a lot of focus around how do we put together coalition governments in these hung municipalities, and that's going to be our focus. As SALGA, we have taken the initiative to try and respond to the weaknesses of coalition governments by developing a framework that will guide political parties during the formation of coalitions, but perhaps more importantly also to sustain those coalitions over a defined period, if not for the remainder of the term of office.
Yeah, and that point you're making is quite important, because when we look at parts of Tshwane, and we've seen how their previous coalition have worked before or haven't, depending on how you look at it, we've seen that those who bear the brunt of these coalitions that don't function are the communities. It's society. All they're asking for is basic service delivery. They're asking for the likes of water, infrastructure, for accountability. So if indeed political parties don't have it together, it will affect governance, and that will result in obviously community members there falling victim.
Correct, Tumelo. The reality is that if coalitions are not properly formed and its foundation is not solid, it will, as we have seen over the last 4 terms, particularly now in the 2016 term of office, it has instability in coalition-governed municipalities is the order of the day. Ultimately, it impacts on the governance arrangements in those municipalities. Ultimately, it impacts on the ability of that municipality to deliver services. And indeed, as correctly pointed out, communities bear the brunt of these collapsed coalition arrangements. So it's important we take the time now to indeed think a bit more around the formation of coalitions, create a solid foundation so that it does not affect stability of municipalities, but more so the delivery of services in this new term of office.
All right. Well, Lance, thank you so much for taking time out to speak to us this morning. SALGA's Lance Joel talking to us, obviously, about the voter turnout that we're seeing so far. 64% of those votes being counted at the Rock Centre. All right.